The Around the NFL podcast is on a highway to hell.
Welcome to another edition of Around the NFL, the podcast. I'm Dan Hanzus. I'm here in a virtual room filled with a couple of heroes, Gregg Rosenthal from Inglewood, Marc Sessler from Hollywood, and we are here to talk about another double Monday night and get you caught up on the news. Mark, let's start with the good news, separate from the news, which is we are done with the double Monday night. The double chamber, the double shotgun, it's over, Johnny, and I, for one, am very happy about it as well because I was having a similar vibe to you. It's like, I'm done with this. I hate this two-screen experience, and now we're done for a bit.
We are, and I think if you've been listening to previous episodes, I was confronted about my behavior a week ago and my text behavior with the two of you. I hope that tonight was an example that I can learn from those kinds of conversations. I don't believe I reached out to you.
Well, the Browns weren't playing.
You
You did have some complaints about the announcers, but that was minor. And we are getting a doubleheader, I believe, week 14. So, Mark, we've had a discussion, and you're actually covering both of those games solo. Weird.
Let's see if I'm still here in week 14.
That's your penalty for your Kaiser Soze routine in week 3. Double Monday Night Bang Sesh. Yes. So we had an important game for the Cincinnati Bengals, who staring down the barrel themselves of 0-3 and the prospect of Joe Burrow not even playing this game. But Joe Burrow did play on Monday Night Football against the Rams. Let's head to Paycor.
Aaron Donald took a few plays off. He is now back in the game on 2nd and 6. Mixon makes a cut. Joe Mixon! Tonight's first touchdown, and the Bengals go on top. Pass setting up the run, and Mixon from 14 yards out puts Cincinnati on top.
No one said it was going to be easy for the Cincinnati Bengals, who have an obviously compromised quarterback, with Joe Burrow nursing that calf injury that will not go away. But Burrow did make it through 4 quarters of this game. He said afterwards that he got out of it unscathed without any setbacks. Who knows if that's the truth? But what we do know is that he played 4 quarters. Joe Mixon scored that go-ahead touchdown, and the defense did the rest with a little help from Evan McPherson, their studly kicker, in a 19-16 win over the LA Rams. A game, Marc Sessler, that wasn't high on action, as really both offenses struggled mightily through this night, but it was the Bengals that just made more plays in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, we've been waiting for 2+ weeks to kind of see this offense look like it has for the past 2 seasons. And when they were down 9-6 and went in for a touchdown, it was like they finally, you kind of saw Jamar Chase, who they moved around a lot, get active, T. Higgins. Joe Mixon in the ground game finally heated up. And I thought the offensive line did a pretty good job in this one. But, I mean, yeah, I know the whole story is Joe Burrow, and, like, I thought his throws were really affected tonight in general. Like, he can say he's not affected by this calf injury. It's like, I think we all saw a quarterback. We've seen him before, minus a calf injury, and, like, I thought his throws were definitely affected by it. And, like, he looked uncomfortable.
I don't think he said he was not affected, just for the record. He said
didn't come out of the game with, like, it worse. Yeah. Sure. But, like, there's no doubt that it limited kind of who he is and what he can do. But they found their way out of it. But, I mean, the Bengals, it's like it was kind of a total team thing. Like, what they did to the Rams with their defense, with Trey Hendrickson, with Logan Wilson, it's like these guys just stepped up and shut down a Rams attack that was, I think, 1 for 11 on 3rd down and 1 for 4 in the red zone. It's like it took the whole team to get out of this slump. And it's like, I think the offense can grow, but it's like this version of Joe Burrow can't be the guy that we know. Is it going to get better? Hopefully. Can it get worse? It can get worse because it's like his calf injury. There was one moment tonight where I thought he got hit and it looked like I thought he might have re-aggravated it no matter what he says. Like, it just looked uncomfortable. But they escaped it with a win. I guess you don't ask too many questions after that.
Well, I'm asking questions because what they did tonight is unsustainable. There's also, like, 2 things can be true. that was not a Joe Burrow that can win enough games for them to matter this year tonight. Their offense was too limited. They couldn't have him under center, which limits the running game too. I think Joe Mixon looked good, but like he's out of shotgun all game, so it just messes with the running game. He clearly can't move outside the pocket. Like he wasn't accurate, but they found a way to win. I think that's true, and he has to be better or else they're not going to go anywhere. But it was also a championship level performance as a team. The best players on the team were all on defense. I think DJ Reader made one of the biggest plays of the game when he sacked Matthew Stafford on first down when they were on the goal line right at the beginning of the game after they overturned a Tutu Atwell touchdown. And that just set the tone of defensive players stepping up and making huge plays. Trey Hendrickson, you mentioned, just beating on the Rams' backup left tackle in the second half. Dax Hill made huge plays at safety. Logan Wilson with those interceptions. And they just kept holding the fort. And the Rams should have been ahead by much more at halftime, and they weren't. And they held it just enough for Jamar Chase to show up, for Mixon to show up, and Burrow just to do just enough. I didn't come out of the game, though, feeling like they solved anything on offense, because even after that touchdown drive, they have an interception, they get a short field, they don't do anything with it, and then they kick the ball back to the Rams. It's not like they solve things. They just problem solve for this week, and if you're a Bengals fan, and Nick Wesseling was at the game with his wife, Steph, like, you're just hoping, okay, maybe next week is a little bit better and we can keep solving. Our schedule's a little soft and we can just survive this part of the season until it gets better.
Exactly. And, that's why I locked up the Bengals.
Good job.
Even though I sweated out a little bit, the reation I did lock them out is I just did not foresee a scenario. And I know the coaching staff's been catching heat on this podcast, that this team, this battle-tested team, was not going to find a way in this game, even if they aren't themselves. And that's exactly how the game played out, where Burrow, the real risk on the lock side was that he was either not going to play or B, make it through a quarter and then come out of the game, and then I'm banged in a big spot. But once he was able to just manage it, and the game plan, and now while it's not an exciting game plan to watch, and quite frankly, it's kind of sad to watch this version of Joe Burrow because he's such a dynamic, exciting player who challenges defense and can move when necessary, and all that stuff is thrown out the window. Just being in the game flow, and then when it was money time in the second half, Burrow, because he carries himself in a different way than many quarterbacks. He carries himself like the great ones, where when it's time to go make a play, when it's time to go get that big drive, he will hit the throws. And I thought the big pass, a nice little play call that showed patience, both by Jamar Chase and Burrow, hitting that big gainer that was I think that went for 43, and that set up the Mixon touchdown. That was it. They just kind of needed one big-time drive, and then because this is a team with championship mettle, I believe, the rest of the guys took it home, led by, like I said, Trey Hendrickson. Like I said, Evan McPherson, who had a monster game for a kicker on a day where the offense needed help. Here's the kicker just smoking 50-plus yard bombs throughout the night, and they did it as a team, and I think it really portends well for them. I agree with you that this version of the Bengals is not sustainable down the line, but during this very vulnerable time for them, just kind of checking off and getting these wins, it will be huge for them if Burrow can actually get healthy in time.
It's hard to imagine them suddenly taking a leap between now and next week, so I'm with you, Greg, in the sense that, I don't know how you eke out wins like this, because what they got on defense was special tonight.
Well, they just did it.
Huh?
They just did it. This is how they have to do it. It's got to be a team effort.
Yeah, but you played the Rams. I'm not sure you're going to beat other teams necessarily.
All right, counter that, Mark. Here we go. Up next, at Tennessee, at Arizona,
Tennessee's good defense. I don't love it.
Here's where I would push back just slightly, because I'm with you. The offense has to improve, but can they just muddle through and the defense carries them for a few weeks and win enough of these games? I think it's possible, because yes, it's just the Rams, and I think some things showed up today that we expected coming into the season. Like when the Rams were in catch-up mode and they're just counting on one-on-ones to Tutu Atwell, it felt like, man, they're just hoping upon hope. But the Rams were more physical than the 49ers literally last week. They put up almost 400 yards against the 49ers last week. They put up 30 points on the Seahawks. So this was a championship-level defensive performance.
Yeah, but Greg, 3 minutes ago you said it's not sustainable.
Right.
What are you saying? Because I'm sort of saying, this version of the Bengals offense is not going to win 12 games for them. And I think he could heal by then and be better, but he could also re-aggravate this. It's like I don't think he really had a real rollout until like deep third quarter. Like we're not seeing a quarterback that's functional. He's in the pocket and like sailing throws because of his lower body situation. It's like that's not teams are going to find a way to target that and make more of it than the Rams did tonight. And they came close to extinguishing the Bengals. This was a tight one.
Right. I agree with that because the Rams defense, as hard as they played early, and look, they only gave up 6 points in the first half. They forced 4 punts. They're one of the most undermanned, under-talented defenses in the league. Aaron Donald kind of had a back to being Aaron Donald dominant night, but other than that, they're just trying out there, and they're going to play much better competition in terms of the defenses that they face.
It was a weird game for their offense because you saw – I'm talking about the Rams now. You saw how they've really now found a role for Tutu Atwell. He made a couple big plays in this game. Puka Nacua once again had his share of action, a little quieter in this game, but had a big catch near the end that made the game interesting in the final minutes, or close to interesting. I wouldn't call this game interesting. And you will, of course, get Cooper Kupp back in a few weeks. I think on the Rams side, it's a frustrating night, but I also think it's, again, I do not like being put in this position that the Rams were put in, where you're going on the road in primetime against a proud, like battle-tested team like Cincinnati that needs the win. And while you're frustrated that the offense didn't like come to play today, because if they played just a little bit better, Cincinnati being as vulnerable as they are with Burrow right now, they could steal this game, and then you're feeling totally different about the Rams. I still think this offense is going to have more better days than bad days, but just a tough one against the defense that really gave them fits, especially with the pass rush.
Yeah, I think this was a big game and a missed opportunity, though, for them, just in terms of the type of season that they want to have. This would have been one they could feel like they stole. Like when they looked at the schedule early in the season, you wouldn't have expected them to have it. And they're built on this offense being a top 10 offense and the defense being good enough. And tonight, the defense was good enough for them, and their number one side didn't show up enough. They weren't consistent with the running game. And they've got a winnable game next week with Indianapolis, but if you look at the schedule after that, and I've talked to some people, it's like it gets tougher, and they are going to be a team that if they happen to be under 500 when they get to the trade deadline, there might be decisions. And if they had won this game and if you get off to a 3-1 start, that conversation kind of goes out the window. So that's just something to watch for them. And I do think McVay, tell me if I'm crazy, was McVay's game management driving you guys crazy? I know I'm game management guy, but it's like I've just been seeing this stuff for 5 or 6 years, and he drives me crazy with the conservatism. Am I crazy?
Like, you know what? You don't think that. You don't connect McVay with a conservative streak, but you do see that. There were just, even beyond the play calling, I'd like to hear what you're thinking, but even that last drive when, they need 10 and you had a big completion to Higbee down the sideline with 3.5 minutes to go, and he doesn't go out of bounds. And I'm just like, and then shortly after that, I think it was Atwell. He cuts back in instead of just stepping out. And I'm like, guys, like we're gonna need this 90 seconds. Like, what are we doing? So a little scattered on that side of it too.
Yeah, he punted on 4th and 5 with 6.5 minutes to go. And at that point, they were down 10. That's basically saying game over, because the best you can hope for is to get the ball back with like around 3 minutes to go, which is what happened. And they had only one timeout. So you combine that with the fact that they had blown those timeouts, and McVay always does this because he doesn't want to take a delay a game. And they blew 2 timeouts like that. And it's just happened for 5 or 6 straight years. And like after each of those timeouts where he didn't want to take the delay game, they got sacked and punted the ball away. Like it didn't matter. You need those timeouts. And then you combine that with like running on 3rd and 15 2 different times. And he's always been like that. He has this weird conservative streak. And I think with this team, he's going to need to have the game management stuff just a little locked closer, because they're not explosive enough to make up for stuff like that.
It's not in the world of,
it annoys me like that.
Yeah, it's not in the world of Josh McDaniels kicking the field goal last night in that absurd situation. But it's like, if you're going to punt in that place, you've got to have enough confidence that you're going to get the ball back in your team, your offense, and know your offense well enough that like they can go score the touchdown, not continue to chip away. And it's like, that was an odd call. I'm not as down on McVay as you are, Greg, on that front, but I guess it's just not how he's characterized to me. He seems to me, if anything, innovative and aggressive in other ways.
He is in a lot of ways, and they're playing hard. I don't think he's doing a bad job or anything like that. I think you found some limitations tonight, though, especially with the offensive line injuries. They lost 2 offensive linemen, including their left tackle during the game.
Anything else on this game, boys?
I just think that the Bengals were lucky to even get Lou Anarumo back this season. It's just because I think we're in a wave where defensive coordinators aren't getting hired as head coaches as much, but it's like 14 more games, he's getting a job, so it's like make the most of it.
Yeah, and it was kind of a signature Jamar Chase game to go 12 for 141 on a night where the passing offense only had 242 net yards. I mean, that's a big time game. It's the old squeaky wheel. Gets the grease. He showed up in a big spot. He carried the offense. They weren't going to win without Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I was going to say that. You needed Chase. You needed, again, Burrow can't carry the team right now, and he's going to carry the team in their best moments, but right now he needs help. Can't put everything on his back, and there was Jamar making plays. T. Higgins, join us amongst the living. I know he had 2 touchdowns last week, but that's 2 out of 3 weeks. I think he had 2 catches on 7 targets today. Had a
terrible drop, too.
I mean, hey, bud, this is your free agent year, so let's pick it up a little bit, help out your gimpy quarterback, and everybody will win in the end.
Congrats to Nick Wesseling in the crowd. He was given scouting reports that Joe Mixon looks good. I agree, Joe Mixon does look good this year, and he was saying that Higgins especially was getting open deep. See, we couldn't see that, but that Burrow was just kind of checking it down or not giving those chances or just getting rid of the ball too quickly. So good scouting from Nick.
Good job by you, Nick Wesseling, after your 50-point lock with the Dolphins. Everything is coming up Wesseling in the biggest of all spots. Let's move to the first Monday Night Football game played. Where was that game played?
It's a forgettable. You would remember if it was in Philadelphia.
Yes, it was the Eagles win in Tampa. Let's talk about it.
4th down and goal, and they try and will likely try again.
Pinch me.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if they don't come back and run the exact same play. However many people this stadium holds, they're all expecting the same thing again, too.
Hurts. Took it in. No signal. He's in.
Wow, pinch me. I mean, enough. It's like the tush push or whatever. It's like, oh, well, if you don't like it, well, then maybe somebody should stop it. Shut up. Enough.
Well, then don't complain about it.
No, it's like, hey, man, listen, you don't like the play? Well, maybe everyone would do it then if it was something that was so easy.
Why is
everyone's so hoity-toity about this goddamn
But then don't
play.
complain about it. Just
because
keep your mouth
I don't
shut.
like it. I don't think it's fun. There's a reason I don't watch rugby, Rosenthal. This is American football.
Okay, but
no scheme.
Nick, I totally agree with your aesthetic objections and your enjoyment, but don't say that they should outlaw it and that everyone can do it. Nobody else can do it. They're trying to do it and they can't do it.
Football quietly, despite maybe the 30,000-foot view that it's like lughead game played by cavemen. Like, it's a very intellectual game, football, and you have to outthink the opponent unless we go back to caveman times when the Eagles have it at the 1-yard line. Enough.
Maybe
I don't know.
What does the rules committee actually do?
They kind of
stay at
outthought
expensive
the
hotels?
opponents, though, by coming up with this. No one else can do it.
Go watch week 1. Like, Steichen tried it with Anthony Richardson, totally stuffed. It's not an automatic play. Like, the Eagles are doing it a little differently.
How are you going to stop that? He gets so low. Enough.
I don't, but like, why are you suddenly become this character from like the Central Bronx? Like, it's like
nobody can get that low. Oh,
who's saying this?
Wow, fascinating. Whatever. All right. So the Eagles take care of business. As
Dan
you
is
knew
like
they
such
would.
a patented anti-intellectual. He's just like, he gets on these things where he just like, who's actually saying that anywhere?
What? Saying what?
I don't know. This Bronx
Who's
guy.
saying that they get so low or whatever, that they love it?
Why are you upset about this, Mark?
I'm not upset. I just think
Why
it's
can't
like,
I have an opinion that differs from yours?
You have many that differ from mine, and I have literally no control over anything that happens anywhere on this show. So, like, you are allowed to have as many opinions as you wish. Like, that's never been an issue for you.
Is that okay with you? Can I go on?
Sure.
All right, thank you, Mark. Here we go. Let's get into the game. The Eagles take care of business in in a walk. Final score, 25-11 over the Buccaneers, a game that they pretty much controlled throughout. Jalen Hurts does do the tush push and the Eagles with, again, DeAndre Swift, which is another big find, Mark. They run all over the Bucs, who can't get anything going on their side of the ball in offense.
I know the Eagles a week ago, we were waiting for them to kind of warm up after a shaky week one, but I'm looking at a team that a week ago had the ball for essentially 40 minutes on offense. They had it for 39 minutes tonight. They've run the ball for 460 yards over the past 2 weeks. They out-yardaged the Bucs 472 to 174. They had 27 first downs. They were 10 for 16 on third down, which is wild. DeAndre Swift and the entire backfield costs less money than Dalvin Cook. The Eagles are well put together. I think they're heating up. We started to see A.J. Brown get involved. It was a complete domination down the stretch of a Bucs team that I find, solid but largely fraudulent on offense at least. And this Eagles team, I think, is we're just starting to see, if this was kind of a growth game for the Bengals, the Eagles to me on the ground, they have a way to go, but their ability to dominate, control the clock, and just take the other team's offense out of the game and tire the opposing defense 2 weeks in a row. They just had their way at the end of the games. And so I love what they're doing right now. And this is my kind of team to watch. They're dominated on both sides of the ball on the line.
I mean, the Bucs ended up with 172 yards. This was the classic, and Dan, you called it, classic example of a 2-0 team that really wasn't 2-0, just smacking their face against the wall and just proving that they didn't belong with a team like the Eagles. And I was surprised, because I think coming into this game, the Eagles had struggled. But from the 50-foot view, as they like to say, it's man, the Eagles are winning these games by 2 scores, and it doesn't feel like Jalen Hurts is playing that well yet. And that they have some things that they can work on, that they're that good. And I don't think these September games matter that much in the scheme of things. Going into this week, it's the Cowboys, they're looking great. They're now the Super Bowl favorites and not the Eagles. None of this September football is going to matter in January except for the standings. But the fact that the Eagles can work out issues and just win by 2 scores comfortably when it doesn't feel like they're even playing their best, and they practically triple the Bucs in total yards, I do think that's a little scary for the rest of the NFC when you're looking at all these players on the roster.
I think it's one of the more overblown subplots of the first 2 weeks is what's wrong with the Eagles on offense. Right. Because while, yes, Jalen Hurts hasn't been as locked in, they are running the ball maybe better than ever. And, and they are doing enough in the passing game right now. It's not like they're doing nothing in the passing game. They're just not locked in. And you're right. If Hurts does lock in, and I think it's more likely he does than he doesn't, and he starts, getting more and more active with his legs as well, this team is going to look just every bit as scary as they were last year, and they will rival the Dolphins when you talk about offenses that you don't want to see on the field. So, yeah, despite all the hand-wringing, they're 3-0, and this game against ostensibly, or not ostensibly, they're just another undefeated team, quote unquote. It wasn't even close. So if you're an Eagles fan, you're feeling pretty hot right now.
It's crazy how good their lines are. I mean, it's been the whole magic potion for this organization rebuilding itself after Carson Wentz. How they built it up with Carson Wentz and Nick Foles was just we're going to spend all our money and all our resources possible on the offensive line and the defensive line, and then everything else will just look better because of that, and we can figure things out because of that. And they mashed him. DeAndre Swift looks like a different player right now, 16 for 130. And it's not just the offensive line, because Gainwell wasn't really getting it done tonight. He looks like he's in Mario Kart and he hits the oil slick or something. When he goes forward, it's just phoo. I love me some DeAndre Swift right now.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Gainwell. Gainwell lost that job. And Swift, I don't know, Mark, the Lions there were moments in his Lions career where it looked like it was just about to click. I'm not surprised. I'm obviously he's played the best running back in the league the last 2 weeks, but you kind of felt this was always in him, and now he's in a perfect spot. You get to the point now where you wouldn't be surprised if this guy's near the top of the league in rushing at the end of the season. He is set up beautifully here.
He's in a better environment. Although the Lions have a good line too, but I think he's healthy. I think DeAndre Swift was battling a lot of injury stuff in other seasons too. And I thought that the Lions backfield reinvention this offseason was a little mysterious to me. They kind of had it going on last year with Williams and Swift. He looks great in Philadelphia, and it's I'm with you, Dan, that we took 1 week's worth of Eagles offense and kind of it became a talking point. But I do think that you're not getting, I think we came into the season thinking like Jalen Hurts is an MVP candidate. And so it's like he's been a tick below, or the offense on the passing game has been a tick below. We haven't seen quite like the performances on the ground from him. All of that can come. I mean, when you're dominating teams this way, it's like you're going to win 11 or 12 of your first 13 or 14 games and be like, and what we just saw from the Cowboys, it's like find a better team in the NFC right now for me than the Eagles. If this is sort of their B- performance.
Well, 49ers. Nice little lock there by...
Sure, 49ers. Yeah, I locked up the Eagles. Wasn't the most heroic thing on the planet. Well, exactly. I was staring down. I'm talking about a wounded animal.
You thought Mark was mad at me before. Just imagine if his lock didn't come through.
I'm not mad at you.
I'm not. I'm trying to be impartial here. I don't think he was mad at you. I think he's just having a little fun.
He called me an anti-intellectual because I don't like the
I just asked why he's always from Central Bronx or like one of the boroughs. Like,
I think maybe because you said you like this Eagles team so much, maybe you took it a little personally. I didn't mean to upset you though, and I apologize.
I'm not upset. I think we've moved.
I'm just trying to have fun out here. It's a Monday night where the games weren't too juicy. I don't really care about the butt push.
It is ironic though. It's like this intellectual team, and they've got their whole analytics department run by Ivy League graduate Alec Hallaby and whatnot. But like, what does it come down to? They're the big rugged men who are just running the ball 1 yard, and they get all the expensive 300-pound linemen on both sides of the ball. That's what the intellectuals say is to get.
Well, I don't like intellectuals. I prefer to shut them out. I'm suspicious of them.
It's another week with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. You guys give me something on the Bucs here. I mean, Baker. I wouldn't say it was like a disastrous game for Baker, but it was not a. It was a big come down to earth.
I thought it was this was not the outcome that I was expecting. I thought either we were going to get one of two things, which was either the epic Baker flameout game where he has like 5 turnovers and he just can't stop just throwing it up for grabs. And we didn't quite get that. And we didn't get the other one, which would have made this game a little more juicy, which is him playing with a lot of bravado and completing a bunch of passes, although it started out a little bit more exciting than it ended. So I think this is probably
pretty dangerous.
I feel like this is probably more in line with the Baker that we'll get week to week, and that's not going to be good enough for this team.
I hated the Rachaad White safety in the end zone. Terrible play call. What are we doing? Like in general, like there's been pretty good play calling for the Bucs with a guy doing it for the first time in Canales, but like I don't know if Baker's floor is like I'm going to go throw 5 picks, but it is what it was tonight. They had their lowest first half yardage since 2020, and like they looked like it, and they looked punchless, and it's like this has always looked. I always thought this was sort of like a 7-win team, and I think that the 2-0 start was a bit fraudulent.
That would get their over, and they asked Bowles about the running game afterwards, and he basically just said it didn't show up. Like what running game? So they've struggled to run the ball. They're not a complete team. Mike Evans looked good again, but this defensive front with Carter and Davis and Fletcher Cox is playing better. He hasn't really been Fletcher Cox the last couple of years, but he started out this season playing quite well. So you just like you gotta watch him and see. Like these veterans, you just assume they're the same year after year, but he seems to be reversing the aging process at least early in September.
If I'm in the NFC, we got to be smarter about keeping tabs on the Eagles here. We talked about like Seattle passing on Jalen Carter in the draft, and then he falls to the Eagles, and then you have DeAndre Swift. Like you gotta make sure he doesn't end up back in his hometown making $1.5 million in salary, like potentially leading the league in all-purpose yards or something crazy like that. Like this, you have to. I feel like they're run so well that just kind of keep better tabs on the Eagles because they're going to keep boat racing the conference if they are able to add these guys to an already loaded roster.
I agree. I definitely think if Hurts starts playing better, like he made a bad decision in the red zone early on a 4th down that ended up a turnover on downs. He probably should have kept the ball and he handed it off. And then he had 2 interceptions, one where he's just hanging in the pocket forever and forces it. And he made a nice throw in a similar situation to Zacchaeus earlier. But a couple interceptions in this game, like a couple wonky decisions. Like his PFF grade, for what it's worth, I bet will not be great tomorrow. It's going to be, he's been middle of the pack for 3 straight weeks, and yet their offense is still awesome.
Although, A.J. Brown sticking it to your fantasy team. On an otherwise good day, clanks one off his hands in the end zone, Greggy. That would have made the stat line look nicer. He would have had 3 total touchdowns and whatnot. But, yeah. Come on, A.J. Make that catch.
I mean, he had a nice night in the end.
He had a nice night.
9 for 131. See, on that one, I want Hurts to just a little more touch. There was a defender there, but a little more touch. Don't make him jump. If that's the one I'm thinking of. There was a
and
couple
then the other play that just seems like they're toying with their opponents. The other play where it looked like they're gonna, just to bring it full circle here, they're like, oh, we're gonna do the tush push again. Isn't this cute? And then they all cloud up, and then they it's a fake, and they pull out. And Jalen gets caught up with his feet, and he falls, and the play gets busted up. Like, they're just messing around. They're just having fun. I think they could have scored the runway, the regular way, and Troy Aikman pointed that out. He's like, yeah, I'd keep that one in the back pocket. I don't think you need that.
Didn't need to use it against the Bucs tonight.
You definitely don't want to pull out of the tush push.
All right. Anything else on this game? All right, let's take a break, and when we get back, we get you caught up on the news. All right, welcome back. Let's get to the news. We got a lot of news to get to on this Monday night here in Southern California. Let's start with bad news for one of the Southern California teams. The Los Angeles Chargers will be without the services of Mike Williams for the balance of this season. He suffered a season-ending left ACL tear in the Chargers' 28-24 win over the Vikings. The team announced it on Monday. The report and the belief is that he'll be ready for training camp next season, but that does not help the Chargers this season. Williams, Greg, went on the field a big-time important playmaker for this offense. He's battled injuries for as long as I remember him being a player with this team since coming into the league, and now he's got a big one to deal with, and that leaves a big hole for the Chargers. Yeah,
it's sad for him. It's disappointing for the Chargers. He's under contract next year. I checked his cap number is like $32 million. Although the salary's $17 million, if they want to keep him, they probably will. They can fix it as they normally do, but he's a guy just has been too unreliable. I was watching this game when it happened, and my immediate reaction was like, oh, don't, because it came on a short throw that they're asking him to make yards after the catch on a 3rd and long, and he battled through a couple defenders to try to get the first down. And my immediate thought was like, oh, don't put Mike Williams in that spot. Like, he's just gonna get injured. It was a tough spot, and that's like a crazy way to think about your.
When has Brandon Staley done that before?
Right. Well, no, but here's the thing. I was wrong, I think, because you can't think that way about your number one receiver, that like you can't give him the ball in space to go try to break a tackle or two. But it just feels like that's the way Mike Williams' career has gone, that when he gets contact, whether it's with the ground or with opponents, like he just has suffered so many injuries.
It's so frustrating. Like, I find his career, like, it's not his fault. Injuries aren't his fault, but it's just like such a test of your patience if you're a Chargers fan, because you have him and it changes your offense entirely. Like, under Kellen Moore, it's like the way they were moving him around. Like, I think it unleashed Keenan Allen too. It's like one of the reasons we're seeing Keenan Allen explode like kind of late in his career this way is because of Mike Williams. Now it's like, can Josh Palmer create that same environment? Quentin Johnson's like a work in progress. It's like you're taking your number two guy.
Quentin Johnson, though, like a similar profile player, so it's
but like
probably
also
so they
someone
can cut
who's
Mike Williams next year when his cap number is $32 million. Like, he's supposed to be the guy that is the next dude. He only has, I believe, 3 or 4 catches so far. 5 catches this year for 26 yards, and I don't know. Like, wide receivers typically in our league now hit the ground running if they're dogs, and you kind of need Quentin Johnston here now to be a guy for them. There's no training wheels anymore. That stinks, though. That stinks. In other injury news, the Saints will be without Derek Carr, it appears, in the near future. But we just don't know for how long the quarterback will be out. He has a sprain right AC joint. That's like the shoulder area, throwing shoulder. Dennis Allen did not rule out his quarterback for Sunday's game against the Bucs, but it would be a surprise, you would think, to see him in this game. And Mark, we hear it all the time from people that play the game, that this is one of the worst kind of injuries from pain management, that you could play with it, but you're going to suffer playing with it. And I can't even imagine a quarterback playing with this type of injury. It happens, but it's not going to be pleasant whenever he does get back on the field. Now we'll see how much he misses.
Yeah, I mean, he took 11 sacks already this season. So it's like in that world, like behind that line, like if he comes back, do you re-aggravate it? Are you already like less effective because of it? You got Tampa coming up, the Patriots, two solid defenses. I mean, Jameis Winston, who I kind of like, I would say honestly, like a couple weeks ago, I could maybe thought like Jameis, the higher version of Jameis Winston can be what Derek Carr is, but he's so variable, and like the early part of what we saw from him on Sunday was just sort of a disaster, to the point where I was like, the Jets should trade for Jameis Winston. It's like, no, they shouldn't, and nor should anyone. Like, let the Saints deal with this guy. You got Derek Carr for a reason. They believe in him, and it's like it is a disaster in a very winnable NFC South, and an NFC South or a playoff situation in that conference in general, where the Saints could sneaky win 10 or 11 games with Derek Carr, and it's like now you lose him for a month, and if Winston is a mess, you're in a whole different world.
Yeah, when I watched it, after what I heard, I was expecting Winston to be a disaster. He was fine. He made a couple of throws in that game. He set them up for the game-winning field goal. They didn't score any points. I'm not saying that he was great, but it wasn't any disastrous Jameis appearance. I'm just a little worried about him without Sean Payton there. But he is a better backup than most. And their schedule is just preposterously favorable. I know you got Tampa, who's 2-1, and then at New England. You could make an argument before their Week 11 bye that at New England's the toughest game by a decent amount in their first 10 games. It's just silly. If you're an AFC East
New England,
I mean, I don't even know. Who is it then? Is it Tampa? Is it home for Jacksonville? Maybe, I don't know. It's definitely not the Colts or the Panthers or the Titans or Chicago or Minnesota. Like,
probably Jacksonville, and that's, they are no great shakes right now either.
Like we'll see. I mean, they're like the 27th
Your
ranked
point
offense
is well
right
taken.
Yeah, I like this defense. I think they can win games with Jameis Winston, and you wouldn't want to see Carr get rushed back. That was a really disappointing injury for him, and it's a reminder. Like, people always say, scrambling guys get hurt. Like most of these injuries come from being in the pocket. It was on a play. He's probably kicking himself. He didn't get rid of the ball, held on to it for a really long time, and took a vicious hit that they didn't call. All these like roughing the quarterback calls that they do make when they're throwing him to the ground and landing on with body weight. That was it in a nutshell, and it took him out for a month, and no one said anything that they didn't call a penalty on that play.
And there's been issues, as Mark said, with taking sacks, and it was actually interesting that Dennis Allen kind of went out of his way to say, well, that's fair. But he said, I think that was the one play I felt like he kind of hung on to the ball too long, which is true. And he's going to have to be – yeah. And here's one thing about Derek Carr.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah, I know.
It's one thing if a jerk like me is pointing it out. I would think I would be annoyed if Dennis Allen –
maybe unnecessary honesty there from Dennis. But Derek Carr is a tough SOB. I bet I would not be surprised if he's back next week. Maybe not this week, but next week, and then it's just about pain tolerance, they say. I just get the feeling that's the kind of competitor he is, and we'll see if he can play the guitar with a bad wing. Let's look at other quarterback situations. This one in Vegas, where Derek Carr left and was replaced by Jimmy Garoppolo. Sunday Night Football, he takes a few nasty shots in that game. He finished the game. He actually threw an interception on the last pass of the game in desperation. And then on Monday went into the concussion protocol, and that is not a good thing. Josh McDaniels, Raiders head coach, said they're not sure when the injury occurred.
There was nothing ever mentioned, Vic, or talked about relative to that. I'm not even sure what hit, or, if it was just accumulation of, I have no idea. there was never a conversation about that, so I'm not sure exactly, and I haven't seen him yet this morning, so I'm not exactly sure when it took place or if it was just a culmination of things.
I mean, there was
that answer cracks me up. It was just like a man kind of like shriveling and getting smaller and smaller by the minute to do everything he can to not answer it.
It's really well said. I mean, there was a major play in the game where Minkah Fitzpatrick hit him in the head with his helmet, and his helmet bounced off the ground on that play. And it does go to show that wasn't spotted. It wasn't really talked about on the broadcast. I didn't think twice about it watching it, but it's he was speared in the helmet by another helmet, and just shows how, I don't know, the system is not working perfectly for these quarterbacks' health that he played the rest of this game.
He seems to get banged up at one point in every game where you think his season is over, and then he returns. It's like they showed him late in the game on the sideline, and I know he's a handsome person, so I'm not speaking about his looks, but he looked clear-eyed. He looked with it, and so when I read this, I was just kind of like, when did this happen? And what? I mean, I don't know. How do you spot this stuff if it is sort of the kind of thing where it's like there wasn't a crystal clear moment whereas, he suddenly afterward appeared like a completely different human being. We've seen that, but I didn't see it with Jimmy G in the Steelers game.
There is something about Jimmy G, by the way, though. It just seems like you're right. There is that moment for him every game. And then it also seems like he's getting his receivers hit because the ball takes forever to get there and it's over the middle, and just feels like there's a bunch of car crashes on the Raiders offense all the time. People are in the backfield blowing up Josh Jacobs. It just looks like a walking injury waiting to happen, the Raiders offense.
I mean, you thought the ball was hanging up with Jimmy G throwing spirals. Just wait until it's time for Brian Hoyer.
Woo!
In 2023.
What about a little Aiden O'Connell? I mean, I think that could add a little energy to an offense that put me to sleep almost a night ago.
Who do the Raiders got this week? I should be more prepared than this. Let's look. Ooh, the Chargers might get a little bit of a break for once in their lives.
In other news, oh boy, Greggy, the Stadies are after J.C. Jackson, who, while a member, the Chargers cornerback, while a member of the New England Patriots, he got ticketed for going 100 miles per hour on Route 1 in South Attleboro, Massachusetts. And he never paid the fine, $600 fine, never took the class. So what happens? The Stadies in the state of Massachusetts say, we're going to throw a warrant out for this guy's arrest. And when that came to light, he was made inactive for the Chargers' first win of the season over the Vikings yesterday. Brandon Staley said later Monday that the move was unrelated to the warrant. You know what? I don't know what's going on here. Does anybody know? Is it about the warrant or not? I would agree
with Staley. We got this text in our text thread. I was driving, I believe, at the time. I got in, and our guy Big Funk gave us some good breaking news. And I said, that makes sense why he was inactive. I had not clicked on the link yet. When I found out it was like a $600 fine for the traffic, I was like, this probably is unrelated to the healthy scratch. I don't think they're benching him for that. But it's been a bad 18 months for J.C. Jackson since he signed that contract. I mean, life-changing money, but the injury and just healthy scratch, it's just been a tough signing.
I'm reading this article. Maybe my mistake was I should have been on NFL.com, but I'm reading this ESPN article. The headline is "Warrant Out for Chargers J.C. Jackson over $600 fine, class," and that has nothing to do with why he was inactive for the game. Why am I even talking about this then? Why are we talking about this?
I'm with you. Like he was meant to complete a driving or traffic or something type class called Brains at Risk, which he decided he didn't want to take.
That's why.
He didn't want to take Brains at Risk. He didn't want to take Brains at Risk, the program. That would have, I think, wiped out the fine.
Like the listeners, they could fast forward through this. We can't.
He was the highest paid free agent a year ago. This is just sort of a.
But Greggy, then what's the story then? Because if the story isn't what happened in Massachusetts in 2021, then if we're going to be talking about this, I need to know why he was inactive. Because right now what we've done here in the media is we've smashed together two perhaps unrelated situations.
Yeah.
That have been
sort
conflated.
Of like J.C. Jackson's in the air, so this got a little extra pop, and I think it's good as a reminder don't be driving 100 miles an hour. And if you get it, you got to show up for the class.
That's why we
driver
did
safety
this story.
is important.
It's a service for, whether you're in England or in the States, you don't need to be going 100 miles an hour if they even have them 100 miles an hour in England.
And if you must go 100 miles per hour, wear a seatbelt. Wear the safety belt.
That too.
Speaking of scary stuff and safety belts, but it's not going to save you. That's the other thing. When you're on a plane and they're like, oh, here's the buckle. Here's the mask that you're going to put on. Here's heads up, your seat's a flotation device. No. If this ends in the way we don't want it to end, it's over, Johnny. We gone. And no seatbelt is going to save you. Well, maybe it's a bumpy landing. Whatever. Don't come for me. The Pittsburgh Steelers charter plane from Las Vegas made an emergency landing in Kansas City early Monday morning. A Steelers spokesperson posted on social media that everyone on the plane is fine and that the team is, quote, making necessary plans to arrive back in Pittsburgh later today. I'm sure they are there by now. This is where this freaks me out a little bit. It landed at 3:55 a.m. Central because of oil pressure failure in one of the engines. No, thank you. No, I'll take the Madden bus. That is terrifying.
Yeah, I think this is tied to a sandwich prop that I had a couple years ago. Obviously not an active prop, but came close.
This is where you find out a lot about your teammates. Like, there is one guy that just made this experience, I bet, better for everyone by his good attitude, maybe some jokes and whatnot. But there's also one guy in that just won't stop complaining. Or just made it worse, like the whole time. Like you landed at 4, everyone's unhappy, and he just won't shut up about it because you're still there 8 hours later. No one's happy, but there's one person I bet on that team that the rest of them are whispering about being just like, "Oh, can you just give it a rest? We get it. We're all in the same situation."
He's probably the guy that's screaming, "We're all gonna die!" Like, and the pilot's on like, "Hey, we got like multiple engines here, so we're gonna be fine, but we're just gonna take this down," and he won't stop screaming that everyone's done. Anyway, the Steelers are okay, but that's never good. So emergency landing's bad. In other news, also bad. You don't hit a guy in the junk. You just don't do it. There's no reason, unless there's your life is on the line, or some other scenario to hit someone in the private parts. And that, according to Sauce Gardner of the Jets, is what Mac Jones did to him during Sunday's 15-10 Patriots win at MetLife Stadium. Sauce responded by pushing Mac Jones, who then theatrically flung himself backwards, did not get the flag he was looking for. And then Sauce sent out a video saying, "Hey, look, just NFL, realize before you fine me for pushing your beloved quarterback, this guy tapped me in the nards." Here is Sauce Gardner when asked about it on Monday.
He had got tackled, and he reached his hand up to try to get me to help him up, and I just moved his hand out the way. So then he get up, he just come up to me like, "Good job." But while he's saying that, he hit me in my private part. You know what I mean? Man. So it's like I didn't react how I really wanted to, but that was just the reaction that came after that. But I definitely wasn't expecting that. First time, it's the first time for everything, I guess.
I don't know, man. Also, he almost said the D word and he stopped himself. So it wasn't the nards; it was the other thing, which is interesting. Good job, Sauce.
Yeah, well, you're probably wearing a cup in general, so it's it is all in one central area. But I don't know, it's another little tiny chapter in the Mac Jones might be slightly annoying. There was some stuff that bubbled up last year, and it's really? I can't remember the last time. If it was we have the Ndamukong Suh's adventures from years past, but how many quarterbacks have been tagged with this accusation? It's so specific that I believe it from Sauce Gardner.
Yeah, even the way he walked up to the podium when he got drafted, there's just something about Mac. And it's so funny because Patriots fans today are all just "Oh, he's just got this dirty reputation. This was nothing." People just get in their corners. It's well, first of all, it's not that serious that you need to feel like you're defending a political party. But the second is I find Sauce's explanation pretty convincing. And even the video where it's like people are like, you can't really see anything. It's like, well, you can kind of see that it looks like he gave him a little tap. And Sauce wasn't taking it too seriously either, but it looks like he gave him a little tap.
Everyone knows he did it.
Right.
And
it's like the way Sauce said it, I fully believe Sauce Gardner.
Right.
It's not the first time that Mac Jones has done kind of questionable, like wrestling heel type moves. I likened him on Twitter today to like the bad guy jock in the 80s movie who's just kind of a bully and a jerk and underhanded and gets his in the end. I kind of think that's probably how Mac Jones' NFL career will play out in general. But at the same time, he's a dirtbag, but that's not the worst thing. It's good to have a little treacherous heel playing quarterback. Like it's fine. It's good to have a couple of those guys. I think it's good. He's like a character actor in the NFL at the quarterback position. The character he plays is a dirtbag, and that's fine. That's good. And Patriots fans just own it too. Like he's a dirtbag. He did it.
It's just funny because it's
just
the
like
Patriots of all teams.
Him.
It just seems it's like it just is crazy. It's the Patriots. And it's not like he took a full swinging kick to the groin. It was like a totally ridiculous thing to do in the situation. This little tap walking by. It was like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing?
I'm not sure a severe kick would be to a different degree, but the entire concept is in a really rough place to begin with. Like whether it's a tap or a kick.
It's preposterous. But it wasn't.
Didn't he do that last year where he did a QB slide with like his foot up trying to hit a guy's nards? Like I don't know. He fights dirty, and you just don't see that at the quarterback position. It's like the glamour position, but there's nothing glamorous about Mac Jones. And maybe it's just like, maybe you can respect it because there's a lot of pluck there. Like he'll do what it takes. He's that guy that in the fight, like he'll gouge your eyeball out if he has to. He does not care. He'll use the broken bottle. He'll do anything he could do to get away with it and win. He's a real patriot.
He's a great. This is like a great symbol of the post Tom Brady era Patriots. Like, hey, we might be mediocre, but we'll tap your dick on the way by. It's like what's going on?
He's kind of a Dan Campbell kind of guy. Like Campbell would be like, yeah, that's what when Campbell talks about, we'll bite your kneecaps off. You'll do anything to win, even if it's underhanded. That's a competitor that you like. I bet if you asked Dan Campbell about this, he'd be like, I'm totally cool with it. All right,
right up
finally, in other Patriots news, Bill Belichick was on the Greg Hill show on WEEI in Boston, and he was asked, and I got a kick out of this because it's just funny, like imagining Bill Belichick as like a real person who has takes. Like, what are his thoughts? Like, does he find Taylor Swift physically attractive, for instance? Oh, yeah. Hubba hubba. Bill likes him some Taylor because this is what he had to say about the reports and almost the confirmation that Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are now an item. Dish sister.
Where do you fall on that? Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, power couple in the NFL.
Travis Kelce's had a lot of big catches in his career. This would be the biggest.
Now, I don't want to get into Bill's personal business, but he had a very public, long-term girlfriend, Linda Holiday, and I think that relationship ran its course this year. That means Bill's single, ready to mingle, and maybe this is his. I'm just throwing this out there as a theory that he knows that the Swift Kelce romance is probably more a fling than a serious, and now he's let it be known his thoughts about Taylor Swift in terms of what she is, in terms of like where she stacks up as a romantic partner, which apparently to Bill Belichick is very high.
This is a disturbing theory. I did not see you taking it in this direction. And
but like it checks out. Like he's saying she's a great catch. The greatest catch he ever made. This is one of the greatest tight ends who's ever lived.
Did he pre-write that though? Because that was a pretty good line. If did he know the question was coming and mentally had that ready? This is pretty good.
Good question.
Even if
let's listen and watch again because you could see maybe are his gears turning where he's looking to recite, or does it seem like it's just rolling off his tongue? Let's watch again.
Where do you fall on that? Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, power couple in the NFL.
Travis Kelce's had a lot of big catches in his career. This would be the biggest.
So it feels it does feel like he's operating almost off like a cue card or a mental cue card. But I am trying to imagine a world where Bill Belichick agreed to go into any media situation with a pre-planned answer to something playful and jovial. He just looks jovial like that. It just doesn't seem like Bill Belichick would do any of that work. I thought it was. I'm taking this whole Taylor Swift thing and being like, I'm kind of buying it at face value. Like I got up super early this morning and watched like Travis Kelce's like SNL appearance, and I was like, these two kind of like fit together. They just fit together. Like I kind of think this is great, and I know there's some. Is it real? Is it not real? Like I heard people saying they didn't think that was actually Travis Kelce leaving the locker room with her. That is an idiot's commentary. They were. I think
found a conspiracy theory Mark doesn't believe in.
I don't believe in plenty of them, and that's definitely one of them. It's like I just think that like there's something about the way she operated up in that suite with the mom where I was like, I kind of buy this. I think they dig each other, and I think that you've got Jason Kelce kind of confirming it verbally too at different points in time, and it's like the whole family seems kind of excited about. So I don't know. I want to believe in it.
I think Bill's with you, and I think Bill just loves love. And I think he just loves beating the New York Jets. He's never in a better mood than the 24 hours after beating the New York Jets. I'm not even joking. I have noticed this. It's just true. Watch his press conference yesterday. He was glowing. They're like 1-2 and could barely do anything in that game. And he was like,
tell me about
over
it.
The moon.
You know what's worse than getting beat all the time by Tom Brady's Patriots? It's getting beat by the Patriots when they stink.
Yeah.
That's not a good team. But they still win. And Taylor Swift has that song, Cardigan. And when I felt like I was an old cardigan under someone's bed, you put me on and said I was your favorite. Imagine the next T-Swift tour. And she changes the lyrics to Sleeveless Hoodie.
Please.
I'm telling you, Bill put his hat in the ring with that comment. Oh, she's into jocks. All right. I'm the greatest coach of all time. See what she thinks about that. You say it's disturbing. I say he's a man.
No. I mean, he might need to fend off Andy Reid, before.
Yes.
It's almost like we sometimes treat Bill Belichick.
She has a say in this. She has a say in this equation.
What do you mean she has a say? I'm not saying that now she must be with Bill Belichick. I'm saying sometimes we view these larger-than-life legendary NFL figures as almost like human statues and not men of flesh and blood that have feelings and desires. And I think Bill's in the ring.
Hey,
I mean, I'd say that we've been to enough combines and owners' meetings to understand that many of these coaches are flesh and blood and have desires. I would just say from a distance, that's overtly, that's verified.
Yeah. All right. We should move on from the story because I think Greg is the most
This should be the way
uncomfortable
we wrap up every ATN After Dark Monday night is with a story just like this.
Just like talking about Bill's like single life. The town I live in, the singles bar is the Purple Orchid. And just imagining Bill belly up at the bar getting a rum. Did you watch the game on Monday? Surveying the scene.
Hey, look, there was a time, and Mark might remember this, where he was on the wrong side of the New York tabloids for some stories. Went back
Absolutely.
When he was with the Giants, that he was not appreciating that sort of coverage. But that was a much younger Bill Belichick.
Yeah, this would not be a new concept to Bill Belichick, according to the tabloid reports from back then.
He's a man of flesh and blood and desire. All right. That's what's happening in the news. If you like celebrations of all-time NFL moments, head over to NFL Plus, where Greg and I broke down the Dolphins' complete dismantling of the Broncos, 70-20, down in Miami Gardens. On Sunday, we did our game of the week on the Dolphins, just studying all the madness and all the trickery and the precision on display in that all-time effort by the Dolphins offense. So check out NFL Plus, our game of the week, Dolphins v. Broncos. We will be back on Wednesday with Connie Fox, and the wheel keeps turning. Anything else? That's it. Everybody enjoy your Tuesday. And until Wednesday, his hat's in the ring. His hat's in the ring. Heed the call.